Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. This week we'll be talking about a supply chain attack via a managed service provider, or MSP, that ended up with many of the MSP's customers getting ransomware on their systems. A managed service provider is a third-party company that manages their clients' IT infrastructure and systems. It's basically outsourcing your IT department. They can set up networks, manage IT infrastructure, and even do help desk support tasks. So when one is compromised, it can be pretty catastrophic. The MSP will remain unnamed, but they use a tool called Simple Help, which is a remote assistance tool. It allows the MSP to remotely connect to users to help them fix issues they're experiencing, or they can use it to remotely access things like servers so that they can manage them. It's believed that 3 different security flaws, CVE 2024-57727, CVE 2024-57728, and CVE 2024-57726, were leveraged by the ransomware group DragonForce. Not to be confused with the power metal band DragonForce, known for the song Through the Fire and the Flames, which I was tempted to replace my background music with, but I think that would get me a copyright strike, so I've decided to not do that. Anyways, power metal aside, all these vulnerabilities range in CVSS score from a 7.2 to an 8.8, making all of them individually high-risk vulnerabilities, and together, I would say it's critical. The first one is a 7.5. It allows an attacker to download files from the Simple Help server unauthenticated, including a file that contains hashed passwords for admin or technician accounts. These hashes can't be used directly, but if weak passwords are used, the hashes could be cracked offline using tools like Hashcat or John the Ripper. A password hash is the output of a password being put through an algorithm that scrambles it up and makes it a long, fixed string jumble of characters. This algorithm cannot be reversed, but it will always have the same output for the same password you put in. So, often hashes are used, and once the password is put in, it's put through the hashing algorithm, that hash is compared to the stored hash. If you put the hash itself through the hashing algorithm, it just comes up with a different hash. This is a pretty way of storing passwords and other types of secrets. The second vulnerability is our lowest scoring one at a 7.2, which, keep in mind, that's still a very high-risk vulnerability, and it's an arbitrary file upload vulnerability, and sort of the opposite of the one we just talked about. You do need Simple Help admin privileges, but it allows you to upload files anywhere on the Simple Help server. This could be leveraged to remotely execute code on the server with admin privileges that could be quite destructive. This one is a bit lower, though, because those privileges are needed, where with the first one, that's not the case. The third and highest ranking vulnerability at an 8.8 is a privilege escalation vulnerability. It allows an attacker who has low privileges, maybe they compromised one technician, but they can't access that technician's admin account for some reason. It allows them to elevate their privileges to an admin level by taking advantage of some authorization checks that failed. I talk a lot about authentication, which is verifying that a user is who they claim to be. But equally important is authorization, which is making sure that that user, after they are authenticated, can only access the resources that they are permitted to access. If authorization checks are failing, that means that people can do a lot of things they're not supposed to do. You can probably see how all these high-risk vulnerabilities play off of each other super well. Threat actors compromise this remote assistance tool using these vulnerabilities to gain admin access using the third vulnerability, steal data from clients using the first vulnerability, and upload ransomware using the second vulnerability in combination with the third vulnerability. Remember, this software's entire purpose is to have access to other people's machines. So this is really bad when it's exploited by a managed service provider that does IT work for multiple different clients. Though one of the MSP's clients actually noticed the attack and was able to shut off access to their systems quickly, many other customers were not so lucky, especially if you consider that people using MSPs probably don't have a ton in terms of an in-house IT or security department, because, well, that's what the MSP is for. Those unlucky clients had data stolen, DragonForce ransomware planted on their machines, and were ransomed not only to get their data back, but also to stop the hackers from leaking their data on the internet. This attack demonstrates that there is a level of risk to not managing your own IT infrastructure. These attacks are rare, I will say, but they're certainly not impossible, and when they do happen, it can be absolutely devastating on multiple different organizations. Truth be told, security is hard, and just about every organization has been hacked. And if they haven't, then they probably just don't know they have, which arguably is worse. MSPs are certainly a valuable resource, but if you use one and your MSP ends up being compromised, there isn't much you can do besides also having your own in-house security incident response team able to shut off access before it's too late. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, and another thanks to Sophos, the Hacker News, Dark Radiant Bleeping Computer, and the Register for information on the Dragon Force ransomware group and this particular attack, and of course these vulnerabilities. And until next time, stay secure.